Major Derek Carr rumors to get your Super Bowl Sunday kicked off. My name is Mitchell Renz. You're watching the Raiders Report, and coming up here on today's show, we're going to talk about something that I'm actually kind of surprised that we're talking about. Could Derek Carr potentially return to the Las Vegas Raiders with Klint Kubiak? If you're also sitting here going, man, yeah, that's pretty interesting to me, hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications, because at the end of the day, if I read something that I think is interesting, and I sit back and I go, all right, yeah, as a Raiders fan, I want to talk about that, and I think that there's going to be a lot of other people that wake up this morning, they see the news, the rumors coming in from Rapoport around Derek Carr, and they're going to ask themselves, should Las Vegas bring back DC? Oh, man, the Raiders always keep it interesting. And shout out to all of y'all that always make this show really interesting. The meetup that we did during Super Bowl weekend, super awesome, man, to be able to sit down and meet everybody. It's what I love about doing the show. The community that we have here is unbelievable, and it's why I wake up every single day and I can't wait to be able to talk to the nation. So hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications, because, again, if anything else happens around DC, if the Raiders end up bringing back Carr, you already know I'm going live. So make sure you don't miss it if it ends up going down. Now, here's the thing. The way that today's show is going to go is I'm going to read through the entire article from Rapoport, because there's a lot of stuff in there in regards to DC, the Saints, some of the trade rights that are all in there, and kind of the entire report from top to bottom. So I don't always read through an entire article, but I do think it's important for this video. And the other reason why, again, I'm making this show, there's going to be people that go, Mitch, why are we still talking about Derek Carr? I would say, since I have done this show, over 5,200 videos, we just crossed 216,000 subscribers. I would say the number one player that I have talked about more than any other player since I've done this show, Derek Carr. He used to be the logo on our show, because when we started, he was the face of the franchise. He was arguably a top MVP candidate in 2016, 2015. But I know how much the nation loves DC. And I've always had a lot of respect for Derek Carr, for everything that he's done, not only for the Raiders, but what he's done for me in my personal career. And he played with the Raiders from 2014 to 2022. Things obviously did not end the way that a lot of people were hoping to end with Josh McDaniels. And then he played his final two seasons with the New Orleans Saints in 2023, 2024. He's a four-time Pro Bowler, which actually used to mean something. It doesn't really mean anything, I think, anymore. But because he's from Bakersfield, because he played at Fresno, this fan base is always rallied around Derek. I mean, he's the all-time passing leader with 35,222 passing yards, the all-time passing touchdown leader with 217, most quarterback starts with 142. Derek Carr is somebody that I hope the nation does truly always know that, he will always be a Raider. I know that he wants to finish his career and retire a Raider, and maybe that's where this whole conversation ends up going down. So I'll just say this, man. If you want DC back, give me a DC down below, because I'm already going to ask you that question here in a little bit. So here we go. I'm going to read through the Rapoport article, and then at the end here, I'll kind of give you my 2 cents of whether or not I would like Derek Carr to return. So the article is titled, Derek Carr Could Possibly Unretire for 2026 Season, Provided the Right Situation and Coaching Staff. A few months ago, when asked about coming out of retirement, Derek Carr said he would never say never, because I've learned that when I say never, it usually happens. It just might happen. As quarterback injuries mounted this season into the playoffs, teams conducted due diligence on Carr, trying to gather information as to whether the former Saints franchise passer would consider coming out of retirement. Sources tell the insiders. The Bengals, for instance, contacted Carr after Joe Burrow went down with his turf toe injury. That work continues in an offseason of quarterback uncertainty, with limited options in free agency, trades, and the draft, makes Carr a possible solution in the right situation. The Saints still hold Carr's rights, which I know that's a question I get asked a lot about, because it's been kind of poorly reported to whether or not if the Raiders would have to trade, if the Raiders could just outright sign him. Here's Rapoport saying the Saints still hold Carr's rights, though Tyler Shuck's impressive rookie season, the amicable end to Carr's time in New Orleans, and the way the sides worked through, and any salary cap issues added up to his told contract being an unlikely hurdle in the process. The Saints could ask for compensation in a trade, though the price surely wouldn't be unreasonable. Ask for a player who has no future in New Orleans. So that's essentially Rap saying, I think the writing's on the wall. Tyler Shoug's going to be their guy. They want to move on from D.C. I think D.C. wants to move on from New Orleans. It was kind of one of the reasons why a lot of people speculated of why he retired. It was like I don't want to be here. I'd rather retire, and then I would rather, if I have an opportunity to come back once I'm healthy, because he was dealing with that shoulder injury. Nobody was going to be interested in Derek Carr with that shoulder. Now, if that shoulder is 100% back and healthy, who knows? Maybe there is a team that would be willing to trade for DC. Carr, 34, decided to retire last May due to a labral tear in his shoulder and damage to his rotator cuff, which could have been repaired via surgery but would have put his season in jeopardy. Since then, Carr took several months off to rest. Sources say his shoulder has responded well, leading Carr to slowly begin rehabbing as the season unfolded. His shoulder has now improved to the point where he is throwing fully as part of his regular exercise routine. Teams have learned Carr currently has no shoulder limitations. So that article is telling me that he is 100% ready to rock and roll with that shoulder. Carr and his brother David have joked a few times on their homegrown podcast about a return to the Raiders, especially since Klint Kubiak, Derek's offensive coordinator with the Saints in 2024, and the current OC for the Seahawks, is slated to accept the team's head coaching job with the Silver and Black after today's Super Bowl. But the Raiders hold the number 1 overall pick in the draft and are expected to use it on Indiana quarterback Fernando Mendoza. They will use it on Fernando Mendoza, and I had the opportunity to talk to Mendoza over the weekend, and I'm going to drop a video tomorrow on some of the things that I heard and really talked about during Super Bowl Media Row. So again, you want that video? I'll tell you what Fernando and I chopped it up about. That one's going to be dropping tomorrow on the Raiders Report. Carr doesn't seem to be actively chasing a return to the NFL. He's indicated he has enjoyed spending time with his family and taking on various projects. But he surely knows the interest is there, and sources have said that the right situation and coaching staff could lure Carr back onto the field. So that's the entire article from Rapoport. So again, I think the big thing to hit there is the title of the article. Derek Carr could possibly unretire for 2026 season, provided the right situation and coaching staff. I really do think that unless a team offers Derek, hey, you want to come in here and be the starting quarterback of whatever team that they're looking at? I don't know who it would be. I'll be real with you. But again, quarterback supply and demand, it's very low this season. And if you're the Raiders, I wouldn't be shocked if they call the Saints, if they call Derek, just to figure out how realistic of a possibility it could be. So my question to you is this, and this is going to be the pinned comment on today's show. Should the Raiders bring back Derek Carr? Type DC for yes or type no down below. My answer is going to be coming up here right after this YouTube ad break. I will say that it 100% depends on his role. This is not I want Derek Carr on the Raiders, we should go trade for him. That's really not how you should look at it. You should look at Derek Carr joining the Raiders needs to be a role. And that role, to me, needs to be a mentor to Fernando Mendoza, and that's the job. If Derek goes, well, I would like to potentially play. No, sorry, it's not going to happen. His job is to make sure that you get the best version out of Fernando Mendoza. And I'm going to go into a lot more details here on what exactly that role would look like here with Derek Carr. I'm going to talk about contract. I'm going to get into everything that you need to know around if Derek wants to be a Raider. And I want to be clear here. Derek, I've always rocked with you. I appreciate, a few years ago you didn't block me when you said you're going to block everybody on social media, though a lot of your family members have blocked me, which again, I don't blame them through the years. But at the end of the day, I've always rocked with Derek Carr. I just get questions around certain people so many times that, as a person, as a host, you're like, man, I've answered this question 100 times. But waking up today, I was excited to talk about Derek Carr. And I'm going to talk about here the role that he would need to play for Las Vegas, because there is a role where it makes sense There's also an avenue where it makes absolutely no sense. And I'm going to tell you, let's walk down the avenue that makes sense. That's why we're all here today, to go down the path of getting Carr back to this team that makes sense for DC and it makes sense for the Las Vegas Raiders. But most importantly, it needs to make sense for the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm going to talk about that here in just a moment, but man, the big game, y'all. It's here. It's going to be later on. Chugs and I, we're going to be live 1 hour before kickoff. Seahawks, Patriots, dude, I can't freaking wait. And there's no better way to cash in during America's biggest sporting event than Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. And since the big game is right around the corner, that also means it's your last chance to get into the football action before next season. So close the season out right with Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. Do you miss fantasy football? Prize Picks lets you play fantasy football every week. You can pick your favorite players and win when they hit their projections. Prize Picks is simple to play. You pick more or less on at least 2 to 6 players, and if you get your picks right, you could end up cashing in and winning your money. It's available in all 50 states. If you want to do a stack, guess what? You can do a stack. And the lineup that I'm actually rolling with for the big game today, it is a 6-pick power play, $5 to pay, $177.50. Now, the best deal available is Drake May, 0.5 passing yards. I don't know if you guys can see it. 0.5 passing yards. By far the best deal that you can get in for the big game. Sam Darnold, I'm going to take the less on the INT. I'm hoping that he takes care of the football. JSN, give me the more. On the touchdowns, I need 1 touchdown. A.J. Barner, the tight end, 22.5 receiving yards. Give me the more on that one. Jake Bobo, wide receiver, 0.5 receiver targets. I'm going to take the more on that one. And then Kenneth Walker. This is an interesting one. I've never done one of these before. 3.99 rush yards per carry. I took the more. So what I really tried to do here, and it's one of the things that I talked about in the video that I dropped earlier today, was what Raider fans should be looking for. You should be looking at Klint Kubiak and everything that he does, which coaches he's working with, because I don't know if you saw the Jeremy Fowler report. Sounds like Andrew Janocka, who's been the number 1 name that I've talked about, is going to join the Raiders and probably be an offensive coordinator to get the best version out of Klint. You know why you do that? To get the best version out of Klint. You know why you potentially bring in Derek Carr? To get the best out of Fernando Mendoza. But that's my lineup for the big game today. And if anybody wants to rock with Jeremy Chugs and I, hey, you already know. Download the Prize Picks app today. Make sure that you use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That link is down in the comments. It's down in the description of today's show. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Let's talk about this Derek Carr role again, because I know that fans are going to be excited when they see this video. I know fans are going to be excited when they see the rumors of DC potentially returning to the NFL, but let's be real. This article titled, Derek Carr could possibly unretire for 2026 season provided the right situation, coaching staff, that screams Raiders. It does. They don't put coaching staff in that title, and Rapoport doesn't mention Klint Kubiak as early as he does in that article, unless there is some true smoke around Derek wanting to come back to the Las Vegas Raiders. And because of how many times that DC and his brother have joked about it, I do. I really, really believe that this article is all pointed towards the Raiders and Derek Carr, because again, I don't think anybody is going to trade for Derek Carr given his contract situation with the New Orleans Saints. And on top of that, DC holds a no-trade clause. So he has to approve where he ends up getting traded. And if he doesn't want to get traded to certain teams, he just says no. And that's the way that it can end up going down. So let's talk about Derek Carr's role here. First off and foremost, you look at DC and you go, I want to be very clear here, Mr. Carr. The only role that you're going to have here is to be a mentor to Fernando Mendoza. So this is not a, hey, if Mendoza struggles, can I get an opportunity? No. If the Raiders draft Fernando Mendoza number 1 overall and they decide to play him week 1, if they decide to play him week 1, he is your starting quarterback no matter what, even if he struggles. Because if you bench him, you're going to ruin his confidence, and then you're really going to put yourself in a bad situation. So if you bring in Derek Carr, I don't care what Mendoza looks like. I don't care how bad he might play. But I don't really see him being that way, man. I'm telling you, the kid's an outstanding human being. But again, you're going to go through ups and downs. It's going to happen when you have a rookie quarterback, and you got to be willing to roll with some of those punches. But Derek's coming in to be a backup quarterback to make sure that he helps Mendoza on the sidelines during games, during practice, training camp. I mean, I don't care what it is. Your job, DC, is more of a quarterback coach and a mentor than actually being a quarterback of the Las Vegas Raiders. It has to be that way, because what you don't want is the worst thing the Raiders could possibly do, and I mean this, the worst thing that you could do is draft Fernando Mendoza, bring in Derek Carr, and have fans think that if Mendoza struggles, that they'll turn it over to DC. Because I'm telling you this right now, there's going to be fans that are going to be like, bench Mendoza, put in Derek Carr. If the moment you hear that, you got to shut it down. And if I'm Klint Kubiak, I walk up to the podium and I want to be very clear. Fernando Mendoza is our quarterback. He's going to be our quarterback. Derek Carr will not see the field. Like, you have to instantly kill those rumors. And DC also has to be willing to do it. Like, again, if you're the Raiders, you got to get it going in the right direction. And I understand Derek, 34 years old, about to be 35 years old, has had an amazing career with the Raiders, right? Like, the problem is, though, he hasn't had that postseason success, 0 playoff wins. And I only bring that up because if you're moving on and you're moving forward with Mendoza, you got to be willing to move on from Derek Carr a little bit too. So if DC wants to join, I'm gonna keep saying it over and over, backup quarterback, because it does make sense. The reason why it makes sense, we only have one quarterback on our roster. Geno Smith's going to be released. He's going to be hasta la vista. You got Aiden O'Connell right now on this team. Cam Miller ended up joining the Miami Dolphins. So you literally only have Aiden O'Connell. And I've said multiple times this offseason, if I'm the Raiders, I anticipate on you adding 2 quarterbacks because you're probably going to have 3 QBs on your roster. You're going to have Fernando Mendoza. You're going to have Aiden O'Connell. And then it's, what do you want to do after that? Do you want to draft somebody maybe late in on day 3 to have a little bit more of a project quarterback? That could be interesting. Do you try to bring in somebody that is a little bit lower on a totem pole? I don't know, that's got some past work with Klint Kubiak. I dropped the video before on certain QBs that Klint has worked with, like a Brett Rippon. He worked with them in Denver. Kirk Cousins worked with them, but Cousins is going to be looking for a starting job based on all the reports that are out there. And, could you look at Derek Carr, right? That's why we're here, to find who that other quarterback can be, and DC would have to be the mentor to Mendoza, and maybe he can be a little bit of a mentor to Aiden O'Connell to help him get most trade value possible next offseason or even during the NFL trade deadline, because I think this is going to be Aiden's final year with the silver and black. Let's go to the next part here of if you're the Raiders and you want to bring in Derek Carr. The only way I'm bringing in Derek Carr is if it's a signing. It's the only way, because if you trade for him, you're taking on his contract. And so because the Derek Carr contract situation is so weird and it's just so vague based on the information that we have, I believe if the Raiders trade for DC, you're taking on a gigantic salary. I believe the number is somewhere around $40 million. You're not taking on Derek Carr for $40 million. The maximum that I would be willing to sign Derek Carr for is $5 million. That is a clear backup contract in the National Football League. Because if Derek Carr wants to join the Raiders, again, we got to make sure that it's to make Mendoza the best possible quarterback that he can be. The way that you're going to make Mendoza the best possible quarterback that he can be is if Derek's on a cheap contract, because that allows you to sign other players in free agency to bring in to make this team best possible, whether it's offense, whether it's defense, better be on the offensive line. But the more money you spend to help Fernando Mendoza, that then helps out Mendoza be the best version of himself. Spending $40 million on Derek Carr is the opposite of helping Fernando Mendoza. So again, DC's made some big money in his career. But this show's not about Derek Carr. This show's nobody's above the shield, right? I said it earlier. Max Crosby, love you. Nobody's above the shield. So if you're going to bring in DC, $5 million is the absolute max that I think you should be willing to pay him because of his job. His job is to make Mendoza the best possible version. But that's signing. So to me, what ends up needs to happen is, I think if you're Derek Carr, you hold that no trade clause. And you go, I'm not going anywhere. Like, if you want to be a Raider, you're not going anywhere. Now, again, I'm not going to blame DC if a team like, I don't know, let's say the Arizona Cardinals are like, Derek, we want you to be our starting quarterback. We're going to trade a late round pick for you for New Orleans, and you're going to come here, be our starter, and make $40 million. If Derek gets an opportunity like that, Derek, you should do it, right? Like, you should. You should take that opportunity. But if you want to retire a Raider, if you want to be a part of the Raiders organization, and if you want to be a part of us in helping Mendoza and Kubiak be the best version of themselves, well, then I think the only way that can happen is if you go, well, I want to be released by New Orleans. Maybe it's post June 1st. Maybe it's something like that. And then you end up coming here to the Las Vegas Raiders. What's going on, buddy? Come here. Say hi to everyone. What's going on? I haven't seen my guy Chuck in so long. But again, the Saints, they still hold his rights. I know, we got the nose is out. So here's the other part, okay? So the draft compensation, I don't know exactly how much it would cost, but the no trade clause is the important thing in there for DC. Buddy, come on. I know. Jesus. 75-pound baby. So, sorry, I got off tangent here. He's all up in me. Everyone, shout out to Chuck. He's very, very happy that I'm back from the Super Bowl, which, again, shout out to all of y'all. But the fact that the Saints still hold Derek Carr's rights, I'm not trading for Derek because, again, it's more of a, I don't want to take on that contract that you're going to have to take on. If you told me it was a 7th-round pick and New Orleans is like, well, we'll actually take on majority of that deal, that's interesting to me. The other way that you might be able to get around it here a little bit is if it was a, I guess, post-June 1st trade, because then the money's not nearly as bad for New Orleans and it's not nearly as much for the Las Vegas Raiders, but I do think then New Orleans is still taking on majority of that contract. And if you're the Raiders and you wait till June 1st, post-June 1st, well, then obviously you're trading away 2027 draft capital, which, again, for a team that's building for the future, I just don't think a trade should be involved. The only way that I really want the Raiders to go out and get DC is if DC says, hey, I'd like to be released by New Orleans. New Orleans eats that money, and maybe it's a post-June 1st designation, which, again, still is a lot of money on New Orleans' side. But if the Saints really, truly want to move on from Derek Carr and they want to go forward with Shuck, that might be the best way to do it. So the other reason why I think that this could potentially happen and why I would say if you're the Raiders, like, maybe it would be good for it to happen. This also allows Derek Carr to retire a Raider. DC has said before that he wants to retire a Raider. I've made a video before saying that I would love Derek to retire a Raider. And, again, like people always yell at me or like, Mitch is looking for clicks. I don't make videos looking for clicks. I make videos that will get clicks because it's the Raiders Report and we work our ass off here. But I also make content that I think is just interesting to me, and I know that fans also find it interesting. But let me be clear. If the Raiders go out and they get Derek Carr, of course I'm going to celebrate because I know that that's very good for me. And I think a lot of Raiders fans will be excited about it because, again, Derek Carr is going to mean eyeballs, and eyeballs are going to come here. If you don't think that eyeballs and extra money coming to Las Vegas doesn't interest Mark Davis, again, man, like I think you're crazy. We know Mark cares about business. We know how this whole industry works at the end of the day. And Derek Carr, there is not another backup quarterback, probably besides Shedeur Sanders, that if you brought him in means dollars and cents for the silver and black. And because of the past quarterback contracts that we've had, whether it's been Geno Smith, Jimmy Garoppolo, Gardner Minshew, the Raiders for a long time have tried to put a really bad Band-Aid over how the whole DC situation ended up unfolding in 2022. You want to win back a lot of fans? You bring back Derek Carr as a backup quarterback. And if you bring back DC on this team, and DC is the leader and the guy that we all know that he can be, and a great mentor for Fernando Mendoza, that's a really valuable role, not only for Raider Nation, it's a very valuable role for Mark Davis, this front office, Tom Brady, John Spytek, Klint Kubiak, but it's also going to put people in seats because people will go out and show up for Derek Carr, even if he's a backup, because there's just certain players that I have covered in my time here that I do really think the nation is always going to rally around. And you might not agree with Derek being this great quarterback. And again, to me, I think Derek is a very good QB. Do I think he's the greatest Raiders quarterback of all time? No, I do not. Yes, he's got a lot of numbers, but football is a lot different now compared to the way back in the day. And when you don't have any playoff wins, I don't know how you could be considered the greatest quarterback of all time for us, the Raiders. But again, DC to the silver and black would be fun. I would love to be able to entertain it. And if he wants to retire a Raider, and if he wants to be Fernando Mendoza's mentor, and only a mentor, and understand his job, then I would welcome back DC with open arms. But again, he's got to understand what his job is. The money needs to make sense, and it needs to make sense for the Las Vegas Raiders. Makes sense for the Las Vegas Raiders? Makes sense for Derek Carr. Simple as that. Appreciate each and every one of y'all tuning in to the Raiders Report. I'm getting ready to hop on out of here. Chuck and I are going to go for a little walk here. So make sure you're subscribed. Make sure those notifications are turned on. And I will be live 1 hour before kickoff, before the big game. So that's going to be 5:30 p.m. Eastern time. Let me just double check. I was going to say 5:30 p.m. Eastern time is when I'm going to be live on the Raiders Report. Seahawks, Patriots, all eyes are going to be on Klint, Kubiak, and hopefully we got a bunch of eyes on us tonight. It's going to be a party. It's going to be a hell of a time. We got some awesome prizes. You're not going to want to miss it. And I got a giveaway item today that I've never done before. Can't wait to see how it ends up going down. Chuck, you going to say goodbye to anyone? You see any squirrels? Nope. He's squirrel hunting. All right, peace out, y'all. See you a little bit later on tonight for the big game. If you want even more videos from the Las Vegas Raiders Report, click this subscribe button right here. I'm telling you, no one's going to do a better job keeping you up to date on stories that actually matter. Videos, I got you over here no matter what. If you enjoyed this video, YouTube's going to recommend for you to check out one of these bad boys. If you don't want to check out one of these, I'll see you later on tonight for the big game.